Hi, this is Vivian Vande Velde. Welcome as you're home and I'm home to the reading of chapter 14 of Ghost of a Hanged Man. I am reading a chapter a day. We are currently on chapter 14, so just one more after this. This is called Downstairs. Emmett, Pa called again, more forcefully this time. Still no answer. Emmett had to have heard the commotion. There was a possibility that he was too scared to come upstairs, but I didn't think that was likely. Pa got loose from Annabel, who was clinging to him. If something's happened to Emmett, he said, we're certainly not safe huddled together up here. The way I looked at it, if hanging and drowning and being hit point blank by a bullet didn't slow Jake down, we weren't safe anywhere. I'll go first, Pa said, even though Annabel was shaking her head frantically. Ben will come last, so he can warn us of anything coming up behind. You'll be safe in the middle, Annie. She was still shaking her head, but he went right on talking. Stay real close, but don't hang on to me in case I need to move fast. Then he went to the door, which was more effective than any argument he could have used. Annabel certainly wasn't going to let him leave her behind. I caught hold of the sleeve of her dress near her elbow so she could feel me there, behind her. I'm here, I told her, and we stepped out into the hall. Emmett, Pa called from the top of the stairs. All we could hear was a faint tapping. Not one of the neighbors come checking on us, I was sure. They probably already figured they knew what the commotion was, and they'd be right. Now they'd wait for us to come out, or till morning, if then. But that was sort of what it sounded like. Someone with a lot of patience come calling. Tap, tap. Then maybe 5 or 6 seconds. Tap, tap. Or sometimes just one. Tap. We headed down the stairs, which was definitely not where I wanted to go. But I was with Annabel in this case. I definitely didn't want to stay upstairs either. The lamps Pa had lit were still burning. Not a dark corner in the house. But it was still spooky. Emmett? Pa called. The tapping was louder down here. Outside, the neighbors had hushed their dogs. Pa was holding his gun ready, even though it hadn't had much effect upstairs. Like in a game of follow the leader, we made our way across to the kitchen, the last place any of us had seen Emmett. At the closed door, Pa motioned for Annabel to back off a step. You're doing fine, I told her. I took a deep breath, so I would be inhaling, so I wouldn't embarrass myself yelling out at whatever awful thing we'd see in there. Then Pa kicked the door open. Nobody there. The dishes were all washed. Some of them were still draining on the sink, others, dried, were set on the table, ready to be put away. The towel was in the pot, as though Emmett had been in the middle of drying it. The back door was open. So, I figured, Emmett had fled at the sounds of trouble upstairs. I figured the tap tap was the door swinging in the wind. But then it came again. Tap tap. And the sound wasn't from the kitchen. Maybe from the parlor, which was the room next to us. Or from outside. Pa headed for the open door. I dragged on Annabel's sleeve because she had a tendency to want to hold onto his belt, and that could prove a fatal distraction to him. But I sure wasn't planning to let him get more than a couple of steps ahead. From the doorway, Pa checked all around before stepping outside, and so did we. The night was dark, and apparently crickets aren't afraid of ghosts. That was about all I heard. Carefully, we made our way around the corner of the house, hugging close to the walls. This is the side of the yard that the parlor looks out on, and Annabel's room, which is directly above. There was the old elm tree Annabel used for her secret escapes. And there was the cause of the tapping we'd heard. For there was Emmett Sanders hanging by his neck from one of the lower branches, the toes of his boots bumping against the parlor window. Pa jammed his gun back in its holster and ran to put his shoulder up under Emmett's butt to support his weight while he tried to loosen the noose and get it up over Emmett's head. Too late, I thought. I could see Emmett was already dead. Why couldn't Pa? Emmett had been close to being a friend, for all that he was a grown-up and I wasn't. But all I felt, or at least the strongest thing I felt, was that we had to get out of there. Then, just as Pa was off balance, reaching for the rope, Jake Barnett stepped forward, almost as though materializing from out of the tree. Pa! Annabelle and I both yelled. But before Pa could react, Jake drove his elbow into the side of Pa's head. Pa staggered, and Jake hit him again. Jake was a big guy, but I always figured Pa was wiry and strong. Still, the third time Jake hit him, Pa fell and didn't get up again. Then Jake lifted the noose from his own neck. It caught on his ear because his head was still too heavy for his broken neck, and then I saw him turn toward where Pa was lying on the ground. Never mind that if Pa couldn't stop him, what good could I do? I went running up because I couldn't just stand there and let Jake Barnett kill my father. I wasn't even aware of falling, just suddenly I was sitting several feet back from where I last remembered being, my ears ringing. Jake was leaning over my father, tightening the noose around his neck. Miss Hawks always said I had more stubbornness than sense. I got to my feet and jumped onto Jake's back, aiming to tighten my arms around his neck. He backed into the tree the way a bear will and smacked me against the trunk again and again until I lost my wind and couldn't hold on any longer. Then he leaned over Pa again. Pa was just beginning to come to. He got his hands up to the rope, but Jake dragged back on it, cutting off Pa's air. All this while, Annabelle was hollering, but I knew, and she probably knew it too, that none of our neighbors was going to risk trying to help us. What could they do to stop a dead man anyway? Jake threw the loose end of the rope over the same branch that held Emmett and pulled, jerking Pa to his feet, and pulled again, so that Pa's feet left the ground. I hit the back of Jake's knee. The leg buckled, but he didn't fall. He turned around, which momentarily set Pa's feet back on the ground. I could see Jake was going to kick, and I tried to roll out of the way, but didn't move fast enough. His foot caught me in the ribs. Then, as I lay panting, he again tugged a rope that was around Pa's neck. He was going to kill Pa. Then he was going to kill Annabelle. Then he was going to kill me. I knew that was the way it was going to be. That was the order he was going to do it, because I couldn't think of anything worse than lying there, helpless, seeing it all happen. Something moved in front of my face, gauzy white, I thought. I, I'm sorry, let me say that over again. Something moved in front of my face, gauzy white. I thought I was in the middle of passing out because I couldn't hear Annabelle screaming anymore, and I figured sight and hearing were going, and I wasn't going to live long enough to miss them. Good, I thought. I wasn't going to fight to hold on, to watch Pa and Annabelle die. But then I heard a thump, which was Pa hitting the ground. Jake had let go of the rope. Finally, my eyes focused. It wasn't white I'd seen. It was palest blue. By the light of the parlor window, I could see a woman struggling with Jake. Unlike Jake, she was faint and wispy. But though her hands passed through him and his through her, she was having more effect on him than any of us had. Jake was holding the hand he tried to strike her with, cradling it now, as though the almost contact had hurt. He flinched and held up his left arm to protect himself from her insubstantial blows, and he was backing away. And there was a scent in the air that reminded me of the cedar chest. Mama? I whispered. Mama was Xandra's love who would help me? But then I realized if Jake's hate could bring Jake back, why couldn't Mama's love bring Mama back? Pa was making strangling sounds, and I finally found the sense to rush to his side to help loosen the rope so he could breathe. Pa shoved at me, not hard because he didn't have the strength to manage that, but away. Annabelle, he whispered, his voice raw from the rope. I glanced around. Not a sign of her. Pa shoved again. What did he want? I should stay and help. Stay and help what? I asked myself. I'd already seen there was nothing I could do to slow down Jake Barnett, and what would it serve to drag Pa back into the house, even if I could manage his weight, when Jake could follow us in? Except that Jake wasn't doing very well. Jake was huddled on the ground, with his back against the wall of the house, becoming less and less solid each time Mama touched him, looking like whitewash when you keep adding water. Where was Annabelle? And suddenly I knew. Okay, tune in tomorrow for the last chapter of Ghost of a Hanged Man. And meanwhile, stay safe and be kind.